girl.
Hi. Is it going to bother you if I wear a mask? Okay. So, we're talking about the autopsy. I'm going to show it to you, okay? So, it's a big, long thing, and we can go through all of it, but usually and it explains, let me show you. So, it's Olivia Soto, okay? And it shows that they ruled it a homicide, okay? And then it explains like her, thank you. It explains like her external description, which is, I mean, we can go through and read it if you want to. Do you want to go through the whole thing? Okay. So it says, that's great. It says, let me make sure I turn this off. It says the body was that of a well-developed and well-nourished white female toddler. At the time of initial examination, the body was nude. A disposable diaper was present under the body. Paper bags were present on the hands. The body weighed 24 pounds, measured...
Paper bags? I didn't put paper bags.
We do. We bag our hands. Okay? In case there's any kind of...
And I was thinking, I know I put a diaper on her. Sorry.
No, we bag hands. So, it says the body weighed 24 pounds, measured 33 inches in length, and appeared consistent with the stated age of 2 years. Body temperature was cold. Rigor mortis was fully and uniformly developed in the extremities. And there's going to be a lot of things that you don't understand in here.
Rigor mortis wasn't said only in her arm.
When it got to the ME, baby.
Okay.
Faint, fixed, purple-red lividity was present on the posterior body surfaces, except in areas exposed to pressure. The scalp was covered by brown-black hair measuring up to 10 inches in maximum length. Injuries involving the scalp will be described below. The irides were brown and cornea were clear. The conjunctive and scleria showed no petechial hemorrhages or other significant changes.
What's that mean?
So petechia is like if she was like physically choked, you have blood vessels in your eye, and I've seen people that have had petechia in their chest, like if there's the person that I saw had choked to death and there was a whole lot of pressure there, like if you're choking, like somebody's strangling somebody, a lot of times the blood vessels in their eyes will pop, and that's called petechia.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm going to have a lot of questions.
And we may have to, that's fine, because some of this I may not understand because I'm not a forensic doctor. When we get to the very back page, it's like, I call it the page for dummies.
Okay? Oh, okay.
So it explains everything in layman terms, like where we can understand it, okay? So if you have questions about something, if I can't answer it in here, it'll answer it back here where we can understand it, okay? It says, injuries involving the external ears will be described below. The nasal passages and mouth contain minimal amounts of mucid sanguous fluid. The teeth were normally erupted for age and appeared unremarkable. Inner surfaces of the lips were without evidence of energy. The frenulum of the upper lip was intact. I think that's that thing right there. You know what I'm talking about? Let me find where I was. Superficial injury involving the anterior neck will be described below. The chest was normally developed and generally symmetric. Superficial injuries on the upper anterior right chest will be described below. The abdomen was flat and showed no external evidence of antemortem injury. The external genitalia were those of a normally developed female child and showed no evidence of injury or abnormality. The lower extremities were normally developed and generally symmetric. Superficial injuries located on and around the anterior knees will be described below. The lower extremities were otherwise without evidence of old or recent injury. The ankles and feet were unremarkable, which means there just wasn't anything, they were normal. The upper extremities were normally developed and generally symmetric. Superficial injuries involving the right upper arm and both elbows will be described below. The upper extremities were otherwise without evidence of injury. Examination of the hands did not reveal any evidence of acute antemortem injury. The nails were relatively short and intact. Examination of the posterior body surfaces revealed a single superficial injury on the left lower back. The back and buttocks were otherwise without external evidence of antemortem injury. The anus was without evidence of injury or abnormality. So it says ECG pads, evidence of medical attention. So this is what they saw when they got her, okay? Because we don't mess with the body other than just like bagging hands or something like that. We send it to...
Would I have done any of this stuff to her when I tried to do CPR?
No, probably not.
If I didn't know what I was doing.
That's fine. No. Probably not. Okay. ECG pads were present on the upper interior right chest and lower interior left chest. Evidence of old injury, none present. Evidence of recent injury. Okay? And like I said, there's going to be things we probably don't understand in this, but they describe it back here to people like me, okay? That aren't doctors.
Like me.
Yeah. A wide confluent contusion involved much of the lateral right parietal and temporal scalp. This contusion, a contusion is like a bruise, extended to involve skin surfaces immediately posterior to the external ear. Overall, it involved an area measuring 4 by 3.5 inches in greatest dimensions. Skin surfaces with the contused area did not show any abrasions, lacerations, or additional injuries. Near confluent contusion hemorrhage also involved the upper half of the posterior right external ear. On the outer surface of the right external ear, a 1/2 inch diameter purple-blue contusion involved the scapha. Scattered over skin surfaces of the helix, tragus, and other parts of the external ear.
Go to the dummies.
Okay. I don't even understand those words. Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. So this goes through and just explains all of the systems and stuff like that, okay? And I'm going to hold this because we may go back to that. Okay, this is what was in her system, okay? Which they'll explain that. So she was positive for oxycodone and benzos, all right, and acetaminophen. So basically, he explains in here that it looks like she had been given Roxyset, and I'll explain. He thinks it's Roxyset, and I'll explain that when we read this. It'll explain it. So findings. This is what they found: craniocerebral injuries, marked contusion of the hemorrhage and scalp, comminuted fractures of posterior calvarum and basal skull. So she had fractures in her skull. Minimal subdural hemorrhage.
What does that mean? She's bleeding.
We're going to explain it in here.
Oh, okay.
I'm just explaining what they... Subarachnoid hemorrhage, posterior cerebral hemispheres, and cerebellum. Lacerations of the cerebellum and posterior corpus, can't say that word, callosum. And then terminal blood aspiration. Multiple superficial blunt force injuries. Okay? There were contusions of the face, neck, upper chest, knees, elbows, and the right upper arm. Acute inflammatory response associated with contusion. There was an acute fracture of a right second rib. Intercostal soft tissue hemorrhage of the right chest wall. Pulmonary hystosis and bilateral pulmonary vascular congestion. So here is the doctor's opinion, okay? This 2-year-old female child, Olivia Soto, died of craniocerebral injuries, blunt force injuries of the head and brain. According to the investigation, just after 11 a.m. on 11/8/2018, she was reportedly found lying unresponsive. Medical aid was summoned and she was transported to the hospital. She was obviously deceased and prolonged resuscitation attempts were not made. Death was not officially made by the deputy coroner until 2:21 p.m. External examination of the body revealed multiple fresh bruises. Many of these were concentrated on the face and neck. A very large contusion was present on the right side of the head. Subsequent internal examination of the head revealed widespread hemorrhage in the scalp and multiple comminuted skull fractures. There were corresponding subdural and subarachnoid hemorrhage, as well as injuries to the posterior part of the brain. Additional superficial blunt force injuries were present on the right upper chest, both knees, both elbows, and the right upper arm. Areas of soft tissue hemorrhage involved the right rib cage. An acute fracture of the right second rib was identified. Internal examination did not show evidence of old injury or life-threatening natural diseases. There were gross and microscopic findings of histoplasmosis, a fungal infection of the lungs. This condition did not contribute to death.
What does that mean?
It's I don't know, you'd have to Google histoplasma. It's a fungal infection of the lungs. It was a microscopic finding, but it did not contribute to any part of the death, is what he says in here. Microscopic examination of the tissues from the brain confirmed the presence of acute injuries. Microscopic examination of tissues from the brain confirmed the presence of acute, I think I read that twice. Microscopic examination of the bruises showed hemorrhage, and in some samples an acute inflammatory response was observed. Toxicology testing, this is where they're talking about what was in her blood, okay, did not reveal any ethanol, which is alcohol, in the blood. A trace amount of acetone was present, possibly indicating mild ketosis at the time of death. A drug screen was positive for benzodiazepines and oxycodone. Additional testing showed diazepam in her blood at an elevated but non-toxic level. It is a metabolite. Nordiazepam was also present. Diazepam is a drug in the benzo family and is a sedative. The presence of oxycodone narcotic was confirmed. It was present at a non-toxic level. The testing also showed a low level of acetaminophen. The presence of acetaminophen and oxycodone suggests a combination drug such as Roxicet may have been administered. Okay?
I know I gave her Tylenol that day.
Okay, I don't think you gave her oxycodone.
I gave her Tylenol because she wasn't feeling good.
Okay, that's not oxycodone. Okay? Tylenol's not oxys or that combination, alright? Now this is where you need to listen really good, alright? The pattern of head injuries indicate they were produced by crushing type force as opposed to a direct blow or multiple blows. The number and extent of fractures caused collapse of the cranium with direct crushing of the brain. This type of injury is extremely devastating and would have caused immediate loss of consciousness and death within a very short time. This time frame is supported by the relatively small amounts of subdural and subarachnoid hemorrhage, as well as absence of the cerebral edema. As noted above, when tissue samples from the bruises on the body surface were examined microscopically, some showed the presence of an acute inflammatory response. Such a response generally takes hours to develop. Based on these findings, so what they're saying is there are bruises that it would have took hours to be like they were. So what they're going to say right here is based on these...
That's why I only seen two.
Huh? What?
So that's why I only seen the one here and one here.
No, listen what I'm fixing to say, okay? It says, based on these findings, so I'm going to go back and read this, alright? It says, as noted above, when tissue samples from the bruises on the body were examined microscopically, some showed the presence of acute inflammatory response. So what they're saying is they found that, and that takes hours to develop, and it has to develop while she's alive. Okay? So based on these findings, it is most likely that the injuries observed at autopsy were due to at least 2 applications of force at different times. So what they think it happened, it says this is also supported by the presence of drugs in her system. So they think that she was hurt, she was injured one time, and she was probably crying and upset, so the drugs were administered, and then that didn't make her stop, so the crushing of the brain happened next. It says this is also supported by the presence of drugs in her system. These medications were likely administered in order to sedate her and treat pain after the initial injuries were sustained. Along with the number, distribution, and severity of the injuries, the evidence of multiple assaults is inconsistent with any reasonable accidental scenario, including a fall. So they're saying this didn't happen from a fall. There were at least 2 different incidents, and in between, there were narcotics given to her to try to make it go away.
So all in the same day, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, but I was asleep the whole day because I wasn't feeling good too.
didn't you get up at 4 because she woke up?
I slept most of the day before because I wasn't feeling good. But she wasn't feeling good either. And a couple of times I woke up during the day. There was one time that I woke up and...
Listen to me, I'm going to ask you something, and I don't want you to get offended by it, okay? Because I feel like I need to ask this, alright? You remember I talked to you before. Do you remember that? Okay. I'm a mama, alright? And I talked to you then. You know, there's like some cases in our career that we work, and they just stick with you because you want to know the answers, and this is one of those, okay? And I think I told you when I talked to you last time that, you know, a mom's job is to protect her baby. But I also know, as a mom, that we can get severely frustrated. And I'm telling you, I've got 2 kids. I've been there, okay? And I don't think I ever asked you then, and I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I feel like I owe this to you. Did you have any type of, like, postpartum depression or anything like that? I'm
with her?
Yeah. None at all. Never had any type of depression or anything like that. Because I know, like, when I had my kid, my first one, I was 21 years old, all right?
I remember.
And
you were telling me that sometimes your kids would frustrate you and top of the stairs and just cry.
Yeah, I would. And it's so frustrating. And I remember thinking, oh, my gosh, you know, like, I mean, I had to get away because I had those feelings. And
Olivia, though, she never made me angry. She was my bestest friend. With Peyton, I didn't have a real relationship with her because I was in and out of jail. I went to prison. But with Olivia, she was my bestest friend.
Somebody did that to your little girl. This is your baby. Do you see those bruises? Somebody crushed her skull into her brain. Eva, somebody crushed her skull into her brain.
I wasn't there when I seen her.
That's what they're talking about in this autopsy report, the bruises. Did you do this? Did you accidentally hurt her?
No.
When you read that autopsy, even her tongue has bruising because she bit her tongue when this happened. This isn't a fall off the something, sis. And this stuff don't go away. I watched a thing today. This guy, he was 70-something years old, and he killed people in like the 50s or 60s, and they just arrested him. This stuff doesn't go away. I just want answers for her. She deserves that.
You said it happened twice?
And that's what the ME thinks, that there were 2 different incidents. That there was the first incident that caused bruising because it was older, and then they gave her drugs trying to probably get her to be quiet because it hurt her, And then the next one crushed her skull.
Was she just fine in the bed with me then?
She wasn't just fine.
Because I let him take care of her, it's all my So the other one had to happen the day before too, right?
Not necessarily the day before. It says in here that what it's talking about with the tissues is it says that it takes them at least 2 hours. I think is what. Let me find it back here. It takes hours to develop. So it says, as noted above, when tissue samples from the bruises on the body surface were examined microscopically, some showed the presence of acute inflammatory response. Such a response generally takes hours to develop. Based on these findings, it is most likely that the injuries observed were due to at least 2 applications of force at different times. So, the way they're describing it is, one application of force happened, which made the bruises, and then the Roxyset, or medicine very similar to Roxyset, was given, which is the oxycodone. I think it has, what did I say, benzos and oxy, and then I guess probably to make her...
I gave her Tylenol myself.
But that's not the same.
But I gave her Tylenol myself.
But that's not the same.
Because Jordan told me she was throwing up. So I gave her Tylenol myself.
But when did Jordan tell you she was throwing up?
I don't know exactly what time it was, but I woke up the day before at like 12:30, I think. And I was walking through the house to the garage just smoking a cigarette. And I looked up and he had her in one arm and some stuff in the other arm and just told me she threw up.
What do you mean stuff? Like medicine or?
It looked like he just cleaned it.
Like puke?
The throw up.
Okay.
I want to say it was a stuffed animal and some other stuff. But I didn't think anything of it. I fell back in bed. And then we went to the doctor about 4 or 5 and she was asleep. So I gave Jim my phone and told him if he would, if she woke up, to call and we would come straight home. We didn't even fill the prescriptions or nothing. We just came straight home. And when I got home, she was asleep. So I crawled back in bed. Then I woke up again, and I was holding her, and I put her in the bed with me to let her lay with me, and then I got up off the bed and I went to smoke a cigarette. And I sat out there for a minute, and by the time I came back in, he had already laid her back down because he said that she fell asleep. And then I went to this bed, and she was asleep. When he woke me up saying some girl was at the house, I went outside, and I sat with him for like 15 minutes, and I come back in and went back to bed because she was still asleep. And then I slept until Jordan woke me up because he was coming to get in the bed. And then I fell back asleep. Then I sat straight up because I heard Olivia make a noise, and I put her in bed with me. She was making noise and she said no. And Jordan said, "Do I need to go to the other room?" And I said no. And I picked her up and I put her back in the thing, in the pack and play. I went and filled up the milk, and I come back and I gave it to her, and then I put her blanket over her and I kissed her and I told her I loved her, and then I went and got back in bed. When Jordan woke me up the next morning, he told me that he was going to get Billy, and I said okay. And I didn't hear her making no noise, so I just went back to sleep. I woke up to him tinkering in the bathroom, and then that's when I found her. When I found her, she didn't look like that. Jordan told me she had a heartbeat, and he swore that he thought she was still alive. That's why he left.
Would you have left?
I would have never left her, and I would have never let nobody hurt her.
You're living with somebody that did.
Never let him hurt her.
I don't think you would have let him.
I would have told you if he did, if I knew it.
Well, either he did it or you did it.
There's no way in the world I would hurt her. She was my best friend.
She's beautiful. And she's innocent. There's no reason this should have happened to her.
That's why he never wanted me to see no autopsy report.
I told you when I met you, there's no reason to lie to you. I'll tell you, I've had my doubts about you, and I'll explain it, because in my mind, I can't imagine you staying with him.
I didn't know.
Did you just think we were lying to you? I mean, we told you.
I did.
I have no reason to lie to you. None.
Can I talk to my mom?
I I don't know. Have you talked to your mama lately?